Shabbat Shalom, beloved. Today is the 20th of June, 2026, and we are continuing to draw the connection, to reveal the connection between the scriptures and the Bantu spirituality. We want to look at the way of life and worship in the scriptures and compare it as it is done in the Bantu way of life, in the Bantu way of spirituality. And when we do that, we are essentially establishing the fact that the Bantu people are the people of the book, because their lifestyle, their natural way of life is similar to that which is found in the scriptures. They don't have to read the scriptures in order to live out their lives. And today we are continuing to reveal that connection and show it as it is being lived amongst the Bantu people, and establish that connection between the Bantu spirituality and the scriptures. We have done 3 parts so far, and today we are looking at the connection between the Torah and the Bantu spirituality, part 4. Right? What a better place to start than the 4th commandment, because the 4th commandment is another of the pillars of worship according to the scriptures. There are 10 sayings, 10 instructions that Yahweh gave to his people. And if you are going to find these 10 sayings being lived by a people, it clearly points to those people as the people to whom the sayings were given. Like we always say, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it flies like a duck, then most certainly it is a duck. And so when we draw out those similarities, the reason behind it is to show that the Bantu people are the descendants of the people of the book. So Shemot chapter 20, verse 8, it reads like this: "Remember the Sabbath day to set it apart. 6 days you labor and shall do all your work. But the 7th day is a Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. You do not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates." What is the reason? Verse 11. "For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart." I'm reading from the Besorah. This instruction is given to an agrarian people. There is no doubt about it. The people of the book and the Bantu people are both agrarian. We've spoken about this before. Their economy is based on agriculture. The scriptures are based on agriculture. Even the Moedim, even the festivals of Yahweh, they are based upon agriculture. So the mainstay upon which the scriptures are given is agriculture. And therefore, the people who are given these instructions are of necessity agrarian. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, swims like a duck, then it is a duck. Usabata is a Bantu word that we find in a Bantu Shona language. The word usabata or chisi, ngarimwi, these are Bantu words that are pointing to a day that is set apart. You do not do any work on this day. kusabata is not to work, not to touch, to desist from exertion, right? Chisingarimwe, that is, you do not work in the fields. You do not work in the fields. So that's a day that is set apart in an agrarian system to desist from work. Right. Now let's go. It is recorded that when the settlers came to Africa with Christianity, some Bantu tribes were already keeping the Sabbath. The concept of setting aside a day of rest in Bantu spirituality is a cornerstone of their existence. This is very pivotal for us to understand. Right? In the Bantu way of life, a day set apart not to go to the fields is a major pillar in their survival. Now let's look at the word Shabbat or Sabbath in English. Right? That word is Hebrew 7676. Definition: intensive from 7673. Intermission, that is specifically the Sabbath, every Sabbath. Now this word comes from Hebrew 7673. Now let's find the meaning of this word. It comes from Hebrew 7673, which is Shabbat, according to the English, according to the modern Hebrew. Shabbat, right? It's Shabbat. It doesn't have two B's. It has got one B, right? Now that Shabbat, it's a primitive root to repose, that is to rest, that is desist from exertion, right? To repose or to desist from exertion, used in many implied relations, causatively, figuratively, or specifically. Cause to, let make, to cease. It also means to celebrate or to keep the Sabbath. Right. Now, to rest or to be still. Right. That's what this word Shabbat means, or usabata, right? Usabata in Bantu Shona, that is to repose, that is to rest. Usabata, which is sabata. Now that's Hebrew 7673. This is where Hebrew 7676 Shabbat or Sabbath comes from. So it is clear what this rest is about. The rest is about not working, right? To desist from exertion. Kusabata in Bantu Shona, right? You are not working on this day. It is about it is about a practice that is found in the scriptures, and this practice, as practiced today, is not working on a specific day, which is also called Chisingarimwe in Bantu Shona. Right? It is quite evident that the instructions of worship and living given in the Torah were given to a people whose economy was agrarian. By the very commandment itself, it's speaking to a people that do agriculture as a way of life. Do you think Yahweh did not know that we are going to evolve to come to an economy like the one that we have? Why wouldn't he give a commandment that addressed also our specific circumstance now in the economy that we are in? Simple. Yahweh never purposed us to be in an economy like the one that we are in. When you analyze and look deeply into this economy that we are surviving in, it's a counterfeit economy. It's an economy that has been brought up by the devil so that he can carry many to destruction through the very economy of existence that we are living under right now. So Yahweh does not change. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And as far as his planning is concerned, as far as his economy is concerned, his economy is agricultural based. Because there's no room for all these things that we have now, especially the technology that we have now. It has got no place in the kingdom of Yahuwah. Because all these gadgets, what they do for us, we are able to do for ourselves. We will have come to a place whereby you don't need a cell phone, you don't need all these other gadgets, the computers, you don't need all these robots that they are making, because we will be empowered to supersede any counterfeit that the devil is bringing about at this moment in time. So you realize that all the gadgets, all the things, the cars, the aeroplanes that we use today in this economy, they will become obsolete when Yahuwah has restored us to his original plan. So hence, the remaining thing, the only thing that will be standing in the kingdom is the agrarian type of economy. And so when he gives his instructions, when he gives his commandments, he is giving commandments and instructions to a setup that is eternal, a setup that will exist, a setup forever, a setup that we will see us through even in the kingdom to come. So that's why you see the commandments, the scriptures are agrarian in nature, because agrarian system of way of life is it that transcends this time that we are living in. And so let's continue reading. So like we said, the scriptures are given to a people whose economy is agrarian. And when you go to the village amongst the Bantu people in Africa, when you go to the village, what you quickly observe is that the Bantu people's economy is agrarian too. And they follow the Torah instructions without having to read from a book. So similarly, we see this agrarian economy in Bantu spirituality and the way of life. We observe the same laws as those given in the scriptures governing the Bantu way of life. So the laws given in the scriptures to our ancestors are still the same laws that govern true Bantu way of life. The law governing time of work is going to do with not doing work prominently fields work. So the fourth commandment is an instruction of time, governing time, setting aside time to rest and meditate upon the creator of heaven and earth. That time is a time to be thankful to Yahuwah for what he has done for us. Of course, though through time, because of their apostasy, the Bantu lost the rhythm of the week, but they still retain the solemnity of a day by not working. So you find that most of these Bantu villages, they will have days, probably is it from midweek to the seventh day of the week. Each village or each chieftainship will choose a day that they will call Chisingarimwe, which they set apart for not working within that chieftainship. Of course, this is not what was originally given to them, but they retained this over time because they know that there is time which must be set apart for not working. In Bantu spirituality, they have a day of rest, as it is a day also, as there is also a day of rest in the scripture. So you find that in Bantu spirituality, the solemnity of Chisingarimwe is exactly the same solemnity of the scriptural Sabbath. The Sabbath observance was always there in Africa long before Christianity came. In the book From Babylon to Timbuktu, this book, I hope you see this book, the title. From Babylon to Timbuktu, this book was written by Rudolf R. Windsor. He writes about the Yahudim, though he calls them black Jews. But we know calling the Yahudim black Jews is actually a misnomer. It also is, when you sort of take it like that, it seems to imply, or it also implies that if they are black Jews, then they are also therefore white Jews, which is a lie. There is nothing called a white Jew. It doesn't exist. I mean, a white Yahudim. These people, they are not actually called Jews, right? The descendants of Abraham can never be called Jews. They are Yahudim of the tribe of Yehuda. And these Yahudim, with the tribe of Benjamin and have the tribe of Aaron, were the last to be evicted from the land of promise, to be scattered on the earth and to go into dispersion. So they were coming into Africa nearly 800 years after the first 10 tribes had been scattered, had already been scattered after Jeroboam's sin. Rudolf Windsor writes on pages 128 and 129 of this book, Babylon to Timbuktu, about the Yahudim in Angola, Congo, and Gabon. Right. He says they were keeping the ceremonies of baptism and circumcision. Circumcision is an Abrahama sign of covenant with Yahweh. You don't just do circumcision unless you are connected to Abraham. Because that was a uniquely sign given to Abraham to point to the covenant that he has with Yahweh. So you can only do circumcision because you are a descendant of Abraham. Or, like the Jews do, you have borrowed it from Abraham to make yourself a descendant of Abraham. You are an imposter in that case. You take up that covenant sign and put it upon yourself because you want to show that you are of that lineage, when in actual fact you are not. So we see that there are some that borrow this that have borrowed this covenant sign to make themselves attached to Abraham, to make themselves appear like the descendants of Abraham. But when you come to Africa, the Bantu people, they don't do circumcision because they've read from a book. They do it because it passes from one generation to the other. Although some of the tribes have lost it, but some, there are remnants of Bantu tribes that still practice these covenant signs, which points to the fact that these Bantu people are the original descendants of Abraham. If it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it swims like a duck, it quacks like a duck, then it's a duck. Our ancestors never read from the Bible. So, because they practiced this ceremony, it is evident it had been passed to them from one generation to another. The writer goes on to say, during the time of Inquisition, that's when also they were bringing in Christianity into Africa. So Rome was on this thrust to inquire on each and everyone so that it would punish if you were not going according to their dictates. So during the time of Inquisition, when they were also forcing Christianity on our ancestors, there was a Yahudim woman who was indicted and tortured for 2 years in order to elicit a confession from her. Her crime was not eating pork and putting on clean linen on Saturdays, or the 7th day of the week. These are the Torah statutes practiced by these black people who were of the tribe of Yehuda. This is before Christianity was entrenched in Africa amongst the Bantu people. So, beloved, just doing a little bit of research will actually point to you that the Torah was in full force in Africa long before the first white settlers came into Africa with the Bible. Even Google agrees with this fact. You know, I just wrote a question on did the African tribes keep the Sabbath before the white settlers came into Africa? This is what it had to say. It says, several African ethnic groups have historical, genetic, or traditional ties to Sabbath observance. Several, take note, several African ethnic groups, right? These range from established Semitic African lineages to indigenous traditions that historically set aside the 7th day of the week as a sacred rest long before European contact. Yeah, Google belongs to the white people. It belongs to the people of the north or the west, whichever direction you want to call them. Right. So it is them that are saying it. Long before the Europeans set foot into Africa, the African tribes were already keeping the Sabbath, the commandment of time. Are you seeing? Even this secular system is acknowledging the fact that African tribes kept the weekly Shabbat long before the first Christians came into Africa. Prominent Sabbath observing groups, it says the Lemba, which are found in South Africa and Zimbabwe. So you see, the Lemba are part of the Aharonic tribe. These were the 3 tribes that left the land of promise last after the 10 tribes had long left. So the Lemba in South Africa, in Mozambique, often called the Black Jews of Southern Africa. So another misnomer. These people are not Jews. These people are not Jews. They can never be called Jews, right? Right. The Lemba possess a strict oral history of migrating from the Middle East thousands of years ago. Genetic studies have confirmed Semitic, Yemenite, and Levantine paternal origins. They traditionally celebrate the lunar Shabbat, practice circumcision, and they keep strict dietary laws. So that's what Google is saying. Then we've got the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is a home to the oldest state-recognized Christian tradition, and it holds the distinction of having never officially abandoned the 7th-day Sabbath. Alongside Sunday, traditional Ethiopian Christians observe the 7th-day Sabbath as a holy day of rest, prayer, and non-labor. Then we've got Beta Israel in Ethiopia, historically known as the Falasha. The Beta Israel are a community of traditional Ethiopian Jews. They hold to pre-Talmudic biblical Judaism, observe the 7th-day Shabbat with strict cessation of labor, and keep biblical festivals. Indigenous tribes with pre-colonial Sabbath traditions, anthropological research has revealed that several indigenous African societies observed a traditional 7th-day Sabbath before the arrival of the missionary. So these, what they call the traditionals, are the first 10 tribes that came into Africa before the Yahudim, the tribe of Benjamin, and the tribe of Aaron came or followed their brethren into the land of Africa. So they too knew about the weekly Sabbath. So they kept the Sabbath. It talks of the Akani or Ashanti, Ghana, in traditional Akani spiritual science, the seventh day of their indigenous week. Memeneda is traditionally recognized as a sacred day devoted to the Creator, marking it as a historical day of rest and reflection. The Yoruba in Nigeria, traditional Yoruba culture recognizes the seventh day of the week as a sacred interval. Historically, it was a day dedicated to spiritual alignment where no major works, commerce, or festivities were performed. Then we come to the Basotho people in southern Africa. Historians have noted that the 15th century Basotho had indigenous traditions of a seventh-day rest and worshipped a supreme deity known as Molimo or Mudimo, right? In some other languages, right? Holding to the day as a sacred before the arrival of the 19th century European missionaries. So you can see there is 4 centuries between the 15th and the 19th century, right? So for us to think that Christianity brought truth to Africa, it's a fallacy, it's a lie. Actually, what Christianity did was it brought a system of religion that was a counterfeit of the truth, which was a syncretic system of what the truth was. And so you will find that it came by force. It came by force. People were killed to become Christians. I don't know what it would have been if they had not been forced. If Yahweh would have just restored these people to the truth, maybe the errors that we have right now would have been less. But anyway, that is the way Yahweh designed it to be. It had to happen like that. He permitted it to be like that. Then we have the Tonga that are found in Zambia and Zimbabwe. The Tonga people possess ancient cultural practices such as cattle rearing, strict dietary codes, and Sabbath keeping that some cultural historians trace to early ancient migratory routes tied to Semitic traditions in East Africa. So yeah, that's just like the oral history says, right? The Bantu oral history speaks of people coming from the top, right, from the north and coming down to the south. This is exactly in agreement with what this Google is saying. So these are the Tonga people. These are the people. These are some of the Bantu tribes that are still found today in sub-Saharan Africa, who live according to the instructions of the Torah. Back in the days, the village elders would mete out a punishment on transgressions of Chisingarimwi, which is quite mimical to the transgression of the weekly Sabbath. As you can see, the value that the society gave to the Chisingarimwi is exactly the same value that is given to the Sabbath in the scriptures. The scriptures say in Bereshit chapter 2, verses 1 to 3, thus the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their array. And on the seventh day Elohim completed his work which he had done, and rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim barakah the seventh day and set it apart, because on it he rested from all his work which Elohim in creating had made. Which is exactly what he did here, is exactly what he is saying to his people. You must also rest and desist from working on the seventh day of the week. And this was a sign that he is the creator of heaven and earth. As mentioned above, most Bantu villages have different days of Chisi. because they lost the rhythm over the years due to apostasy. Hence the need to be restored back to the truth in this season. This message is coming to the Bantu tribes so that they may be restored to the truth, so that they may go back to their original truth. And if they are brought back to the original truth, then the world will be saved. That's what Romans 9, 10, and 11 says. When the Bantu people, when Yeshua goes back to recognize and realize who she is, and the Deuteronomy 28 cases are taken away from them, and then they come back, they are grafted back to their vine, then the whole Yeshua, including the Gentile believers, will be saved and will enter into the kingdom of Yahweh. So now there are a few tribes that never lost the true weekly Sabbath. And in this time of restoration, Yeshua must go back to the truth. You already, because the reason why it's easier for them, as Shaul says, these are the natural branches. If you're wild by nature, you can be grafted to the vine, right? How much more these, who are the natural branches of the vine? It will be much easier. Why? Because they have the framework of the belief of the truth. It is printed on their DNA. It is easier for these natural branches to be grafted back on their vines. So that's why this message must go to the Bantu people specifically, to call a people back to their belief, to call a people back to the covenant of their ancestors, of their forefathers, so that they may walk therein. And once a remnant has come back to the truth, then the work of salvation shall be completed. Yah wants that platform to be built by the remnant of Yeshua, so that the end of the kingdom of Ashatan can be finalized. We see now the weekly Sabbath is coming under threat from the Western powers through their Christian churches, and they are going to force the whole world to worship on the day of the sun by law. Beloved, this is happening so rapidly, and most of us are fast asleep. We don't even see it. But when you look at the events as they are unfolding right now, you can clearly see that we may not even get to 2030 before the Sunday laws are there. It is moving very, very fast. And all the legal systems that needs to be there, apparently they are all there right now as we speak. And so, anytime from now, we can hear the United States declaring a national Sunday law. And once that happens, there's no turning back. We are now sliding on a slope from which we can never recover. It's like an aeroplane that is in a stalling position. Once it goes there, it can't recover, and it will continue going down. That's exactly what is happening to us right now. So we need to be awake. We need to open our eyes and watch and see what is happening. So the West or the North is coming up through the Roman system, because obviously the North, you could say it comes under Rome. When you look at the G10 plus the United States of America, these are the remnants of the Roman Empire. And it is them, see, the Roman Empire has acquired everything from the Grecian Empire. It has acquired everything from the Middle Persian Empire. It has acquired all apostates from Babylonian system, from the Babylonian Empire. So within the Roman Empire, within the papal system itself, you will find all the apostasies of all these 3 kingdoms that came, or 4 kingdoms that came before the apostate Roman papal system. So papal supremacy number 2 is well established at the moment, and within it you find all the apostasies from Babylon, Middle Persia, Greece, and pagan Rome. And these apostasies are the ones that she wants now, currently, to force conscience, to force people, right, by law, so that all will have to accept the dictates, teachings, and belief systems of the Roman Church. We need to wake up. No more time. There's no more time. So the very fact that they call the first day of the week Sunday, right, which is the mark of Roman Catholicism's authority, which is what they want to enforce to the world. And this day, they call it the day of the sun, or Sunday, right? And this is the Sunday that they want to enforce to the whole world. So the very fact that they call the first day of the week Sunday, they know the day is dedicated to the sun god or sun deity, who is none other than the devil, Satan himself. So in other words, a demonic system, a devilish system, a satanic system of belief is it that needs to be forced by law on this earth. I really get disturbed when I hear Christians supporting Sunday. I don't even think that they've got a clue what they are actually talking about. I don't think so. You are dancing into the hands of your enemy. You are dancing into the hands of the devil. And the longer you dance into those hands, the sooner it's going to squeeze you to pulp. So we notice the weekly Sabbath was always there in Africa. It never came through force as did Sunday. So Sunday, or Christianity as a religion to Africa, it came by guns, it came by force. Whenever there is force, you must know that it is a false religion. Only false religion uses force. And so the fact that Christianity came by the gun clearly shows that it is a false religion. And it came with some truths in it, but mingled with demonic errors that are lethal to the believers. So similarly, as it is now, when man makes laws to enforce belief, you must know again that those laws or those belief systems are false beliefs. When they are going to force Sunday by law, you must know that the very act that they make a law to force Sunday shows that that is a false system of belief, and it is demonic. It is coming straight from the pits of hell. So the time has come for Bantu families to restore their true original spirituality as handed down to them by Yahuwah, as he gave it to our forefathers. This is the time that we go back to the true Chisingarimwi, not to run from Wednesday to the 7th day of the week. That is also an equally a legal error. We cannot do that. We must go to the correct, true 7th day of the week and restore truth. We are not going to continue in Jeroboam's era of choosing his own days of worshiping Yahuwah and replacing the people that Yah had dedicated to do the work in the sanctuary. We are not going to continue in that trajectory. We are going to have to move away from Jeroboam's era and follow that saith Yahuwah. In Revelation chapter 14 verse 6 it says, "And I saw another messenger fly in the midst of the heavens, having the everlasting Besorah, to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. So this message that I am preaching now is the end time message. It is the message of restoration of true worship and righteous living according to the Torah, according to the instructions of Yahweh. And this message must go to the ends of the earth. The restoration of true worship must go to all tribes, to all kindred, to all nations, to all tongues and people. It's a message that is necessary so that people can make their own choices. This is not a message of force as it is done in the dark world, in the dark system of Hashatan. What does the message say? Revelation 14:7, saying with a loud voice, fear Elohim and give esteem to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. It's taking us back to Genesis chapter 2, right? We fear Yahweh, we obey Elohim, because he is the creator of heaven and earth. So we worship him because he created. This is the same reason why we keep the Sabbath. We keep the Sabbath because he created. So we read from Genesis chapter 2 verse 1, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and the host of them. And on the seventh day Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim barakah the seventh day, and set it apart, because that in it he had rested from all his work which Elohim created and made. So this very same Sabbath, scripture tells us that it shall be kept in the new heaven and the new earth. Yet the demonic system is pushing for a Sunday law so that the whole world may keep this Sunday, may worship the devil. So when you keep this Sunday, it's actually a sign that you have surrendered your will to the devil and that you worship the devil. Once this system is set up by law and you obey it contrary to the law of Yahuwah, then you are consciously choosing to worship the devil. That's what will be happening. So be warned, beware, and be aware. In Isaiah 66 verse 22 it says, for as the new heavens and the new earth which I will make shall remain before me, saith Yahuwah, so shall your seed and your name remain. Right? So this is a promise of permanency. This is a promise of everlasting. Right? And then it says so the new heavens and the new earth, they shall remain. And as they remain forever, so shall you and your seed also remain. Right? Right. And then it says in verse 23, Isaiah 66:23, then it goes to say, and it shall come to pass that from one new month to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, say Yahuwah. So this is in the new heaven and the new earth. This is in the kingdom. Yahuwah says, month to month, Sabbath to Sabbath, worship will be conducted. Right? The programs of worship, they are designated according to months. Those are the festivals, right? The festivals, or the first day of every month, and the festivals which come in months, and the weekly, the Sabbath, which comes on a week. Yahuwah is saying that system, that program of worship shall remain forever. in the kingdom. Now, why do you want to stop them now in the interim? Why do you want to stop the festivals now in the interim? When monthly, month to month, we are going to be worshiping Yahuwah. When weekly, Sabbath to Sabbath, we are going to be worshiping Yahuwah in the kingdom. Why do you want to stop it? You know why? Because you are drunk with the Christian doctrines that twist the scriptures and mislead you. Prayerfully read the scriptures independent of church doctrine and ask Yahuwah what that means. And then you will come to the truth. The Sabbath rest, beloved, remains for believers. It is going to be there in the kingdom. And even Shaul in the book of Hebrews, he writes, chapter 4, verse 1, let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, Shabbat, any of you should seem to come short of it. So Shaul is encouraging, right, that we must fear, right, or we must obey the commandments of Yahuwah. That's the fear that we read in Revelation chapter 14, verses 6 and 7, right? Fear Elohim, right? For the hour of Jesus' judgment has come, and the scriptures have constantly told us that the fear of Elohim is doing his commandments, it's obeying his Torah. So he says, let us therefore fear, lest the promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. Right? We don't need to come short of that promise. So we need to obey him. We need to live according to his commandments. For unto us was the Besora preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with the belief in them that had it. So they heard the truth, but did not believe. And because they did not believe, the word did not benefit our ancestors. For we, which have believed, do enter into rest, as he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. Shabbat, right? That's the rest that Shaul is talking about, right? You can only enter into that rest when you believe. And the believing is doing, it's obeying and doing. Right? Believing is not just an academic acceptance or philosophical acceptance. That's not belief. Right? It's not just acknowledging by word of mouth. It has got also an element of doing. You have to believe, and believing, you have to do. You have to accept and do what you believe. So Shaul is telling us here, if you don't have belief, then you are not going to benefit. Then he goes on to say, verse 3, for we which have believed do enter into rest. As he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. So you see, he's taking us back to creation, right? So the rest that Shaul is talking about is the rest of the seventh day, is the rest of the Shabbat. So he still expects us to enter into it as he entered into that rest. For he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and Elohim did rest the seventh day from all his works. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest, right? There's a condition. If you are going to enter into his rest, you must what? You must fear. Right? You must believe. Right? Seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. So if it remaineth, it means it is still applicable. It is still yet to happen. But those that heard it first to whom it was preached first. They did not enter because they did not believe. Verse 7, Hebrews 4 verse 7 says, again he limited a certain day, saying in David, today, after so long a time, as it is said, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. I'm talking to you now, today, including you Sunday worshippers, and those of you that keep a Sabbath from evening to evening. Today, if you hear his word, do not harden your hearts. For if Yahusha had given them rest, then would he not afterwards have spoken of another day? So this Yahusha is the son of Nun. He didn't change. He didn't give them another rest. It's still the same rest that was given by Masha. The same rest that came through Masha. That's the same rest to be observed. Then verse 9, Hebrews 4 verse 9 says, there remaineth therefore a rest to the people of Elohim. A kusabata, that rest, kusabata, usabata remains for the people of Elohim. So what part of remain don't you understand, you Sunday worshippers? It remains, it means that it is still there, it is still valid. That rest is still valid, and it is in connection with the seventh day. Right? Yahusha or Joshua did not change it. Verse 10, it says, okay, I'll carry on from 9. There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of Elohim. If you are Yahuwah's child, if you are the people of Yahuwah, then the rest of Yahuwah is applicable to you. Right? Verse 10, for he that is entered into his rest, he also has ceased from his own works, as Elohim did from his. Let us labor therefore to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. So the laboring that we do is to get belief in us, to accept the word of Yahweh. Beloved, the Sabbath belongs to Yah, and it is his gift to mankind. We are supposed to accept it. In Shemot chapter 31, verse 13 and 14, 15 up to 17, I will read. It says, speak, Exodus 31, okay, I'll start from verse 18. Shemot 31, verse 18. Speak thou also unto the children of Yeshua, saying, verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahuwah, that doth set thee apart. Right. My Sabbaths you shall keep, and you shall know that it is Yahuwah that set thee apart. So these Sabbaths that you are to keep, beloved, are the same Sabbaths that Ezekiel is talking about. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 20. Right. I'll read 11, 12, then 19 and 20. Right. Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 11. Let's start from verse 11. My Sabbaths. Okay, let's start from verse 10. Right. Let's start from verse 10. And then up to 12. It says, wherefore I caused them to go forth out of the land of Mizraim, and brought them into the wilderness. And I gave them my statutes, and showed them my judgments, which if a man do, he shall even live in them. So these are statutes that he is giving. Moreover, also I gave them my Sabbaths, to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am Yahuwah, that set them apart. So these statutes are, or these Sabbaths are found in the statutes, right? Which statutes are in Waikarara, Leviticus 23. So the Sabbaths have got to do with the monthly festivals. The festivals that come in months annually. These are they that Yahuwah says are a sign that show that Yahuwah will set you apart. Now, verse 18, 19, and 20, it goes on to say, but I said unto their children in the wilderness, walk ye not in the statutes of your fathers, neither observe their judgments, nor defile yourselves with their idols. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Walk in my statutes and keep my judgments and do them, and hallow all my Sabbaths, and there shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. So, beloved, this is what Shemoth chapter 31 verse 13 is talking about. It is talking about these annual Shabbats, right, which are found in the statutes, which we must observe and do according to the commandment of Yahuwah, because it is in these that we are set apart. It is in these festivals that we see the plan of salvation, that we understand our salvation, that in them we see how Yahushua redeems us. And when we partake of these annual festivals, which are taking place in months, then we start to work with Yahuwah as He is serving us. We start to cooperate with Him as He is serving us, because we are at the right times for His execution of His salvation for us. You cannot miss the festival and hope that you will be saved at the end of the time. It will not happen. You need to be at the festival for you to experience salvation. If you are not there, there's no way your sin is going to be blotted out. Only those who are on the Day of Atonement, who are partaking in repentance, only those who are waiting for the coming of Yahushua at the Feast of Tabernacles, are they who are going to participate. If you are not there, you are missing out. And you know where you will be. So we continue to read Shemot chapter 31 verse 14. You shall keep the Sabbath. Now it's not Sabbaths. It's the Sabbath. Therefore, for it is Kodesh unto you. Everyone that defileth it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his. So you can clearly see this Sabbath is the weekly. Because the weekly, it says there is no working, any manner of work. You don't work on the seventh day of the week. Whereas on the annual Shabbats, there are some Shabbats where you can work, except for the Day of Atonement. And those Sabbaths which are stated clearly, right, that you do not do several work, but you can do other works, right? So the annual festivals, the annual Shabbats, there are some that you can do certain types of work, whereas the weekly is strictly no work. No manner of work can be done in this. So we can see in Exodus, Shemot 31 verse 14 is talking about the weekly Sabbath, whereas Shemot 31 verse 13 is talking about the annual Shabbat. Then it further clarifies in verse 15, 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest. Kodesh to Yahuwah, whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Yahshua shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant. Right? You take note of that. It's a perpetual covenant. What part of perpetual is there? Don't you understand? If it is perpetual to Yahshua, so is it also to those that are going to be grafted into Yahshua. If you claim to believe in the Savior, the Messiah of Yahshua, then you should take the perpetual things of Yahshua and appropriate them to yourself. Verse 17, it is a sign between me and the children of Yahshua forever. For in 6 days Yahuwah made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day he rested. That's it. That's it. The Sabbath is permanent. 1 Corinthians 19, verse 3 and 30. You shall fear every man his mother and his father, and keep my Sabbaths. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. So you can see the fear of parents, the respect of parents is also coming in the keeping of the Sabbath. Those that show us the plan of salvation are they also that are proclaiming that we fear our parents. 19 verse 30, you shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. Also, when you keep the Sabbaths, you are reverencing the presence of Yahuwah. And he says, you shall reverence my sanctuary. I am Yahuwah. You get that? Then, 1 Corinthians 23 verse 3 says, 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest, and Kodesh convocation, you shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yahuwah in all your dwellings. Just like this is how we should take Chisingarimwi. It must come on the 7th day. This must be proclaimed to all the rulers of the Bantu people. They must come to a place where they will say, we have 1 day of Chisingarime, which is the 7th day of the week. If they choose to follow the demonic prescriptions, then families must come together and they elect the 7th day as a day of rest for that family. Never mind if the village heads and the chiefs may not accept it. They may not accept it, considering that some of them are already captured in the system of Ashatan. And so, it is the prerogative of the family to restore themselves to the truth, so that's why Scripture says, it is a Sabbath of Yahuwah in all your dwellings. Right? You hear that? The Sabbath is kept in your dwellings, in your own homes, in your own places of residence, in your own families. That's where you are supposed to restore the Sabbath. Even if there is no communal restoration of the Sabbath by the community, by the villages, but the Sabbath must be restored by the families. And when all the families of the village have restored the Sabbath, then the whole community will find itself worshiping Yahuwah in spirit and in truth. We are not going to wait for the village heads and the chiefs and the kings to enforce laws. Our worship is not enforced by kings. Our worship is enforced by the word of Yahuwah. And we are supposed just to believe. In fact, Yahuwah does not force. It is directed and instructed by the word of Yahuwah. Then we read in Matthew, in Mark chapter 3, right, or chapter 2, Mark chapter 2, verse 28. Therefore, the Son of Man is master also of the Shabbat. Right. So the Shabbat belongs to Yahuwah and his Son. And we see that it was his custom or way of life to keep the Sabbath. We read in Luke chapter 4, verse 16, and he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. So was Shaul also. It was his custom to keep the Sabbath. Just as it is inherently an intrinsic custom for the Bantu people to keep the Sabbath. In Mark chapter 2, verse 27, and he said unto them, the Sabbath was made, Mark 2, verse 27, the Sabbath was made for men and not men for the Sabbath. Yah gave us the Sabbath as a barakah. as we have read in Ezekiel chapter 12 verse 2, moreover, also I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am Yahuwah, that sanctify them. The Sabbath is not a burden. For goodness sake, you being asked to rest and to enter into a special communion with your Maker. How can it be a burden? Is what these Christians teach. It can't be. Beloved, this is part 4 of the connection between Bantu spirituality and scriptures. If you have seen something out of this, I'm urging you to continue studying, researching, praying that Yahuwah reveals more to you. The scriptures must be taken back to their setting. And when the scriptures are taken back to their setting, then they will start to make sense. And people will start to believe them in their truthfulness. As it is now, we can't see the scriptures with a Eurocentric lens and hope that we can restore truth. Never. It will never happen. We have to shift our mindsets. We have to shift the traditions that we were brought up in and look at that saith Yahuwah from its correct platform, from its correct setting, and then we may understand the truth. May Ababaya be with you and Baraka you. Hallelujah.